Most people live their entire lives as passengers inside their own heads. They are driven by thoughts they didn't choose, reactions they can't control, and anxieties that have no basis in reality. To master the mind is to move from the passenger seat to the pilot's seat. It is the realization that while you cannot always control the thoughts that arise, you have absolute authority over which thoughts you give power to. This mastery is the difference between a life of reactive chaos and a life of intentional creation. It is the ultimate psychological sovereignty. If you are ready to stop being a victim of your own thoughts and start architecting your internal world, you are in the right place. To join our mission of spreading deep wisdom and to ensure you never miss our high-level guides, please subscribe to the Knowledge Hub. Hit the notification bell to stay updated with the 1% lifestyle. Let's proceed. The first step in mastering the mind is understanding the observer effect. Most people identify with their thoughts. They believe that because they think something, it must be true or it must be them. However, the mind is simply a tool. Much like a heart pumps blood, the mind pumps thoughts. True mastery begins when you create a gap between the I and the thought. This is the practice of metacognition, thinking about thinking. When you observe a thought of fear or doubt without reacting to it, you strip it of its power. You become the silent witness to the mental chatter rather than the chatter itself. The second pillar of mental mastery is understanding the negativity bias. Evolutionarily, our brains were designed for survival, not happiness. Your ancestors survived because they were constantly scanning the environment for threats, saber-toothed tigers, poisonous plants, or hostile tribes. In the modern world, this survival mechanism is still active, but it has no tigers to hunt. Instead, it hunts for problems in your career, your relationships, and your self-image. It magnifies the one negative comment and ignores the 50 positive ones. Mastery requires you to consciously override this prehistoric software. You must train your mind to seek out growth signals instead of threat signals. Furthermore, we must address the law of mental substitution. The mind cannot be empty, it is always occupied by something. If you do not consciously choose what to focus on, the environment and your old habits will choose for you. Mastery is the art of replacement. You cannot simply stop thinking a negative thought, you must substitute it with a higher, more constructive one. This is not positive thinking in a shallow sense. It is the strategic management of your cognitive real estate. You treat your attention like a billion-dollar investment, refusing to spend it on low-value, draining mental loops. Complexity in the mind often comes from cognitive distortions, the filters through which we see the world. Common distortions like catastrophizing, expecting the worst, or black-and-white thinking, seeing things only as total success or total failure, act like dirty lenses on a camera. They blur the truth. A master of the mind practices radical objectivity. They learn to see facts as they are without the emotional coloring added by their ego. By cleaning these mental lenses, you reduce the friction between your internal world and the external reality, allowing you to move with far greater precision. Another vital component is neuroplasticity. For decades, scientists believed the adult brain was fixed. We now know that the brain is like plastic. It can be reshaped by your thoughts and actions. Every time you choose focus over distraction or calm over anger, you are physically rewiring your neural pathways. You are literally building a master's brain. Mastery of the mind is not a destination you reach. It is a biological transformation you earn through consistent mental hygiene. In this first step, we have established the importance of the observer effect, the management of the negativity bias, and the power of mental substitution. We have seen that the mind is a wild horse that must be tamed before it can be ridden, but this is only the foundation. As we move deeper into this guide, we will explore the subconscious engine, how to program your deep mind for success, and the role of internal silence in a world of constant noise. The path to mental mastery is the most difficult journey any human can undertake because the enemy is invisible and it lives within you. But on the other side of this battle is a level of clarity and peace that the 99% will never know. You are no longer a leaf in the wind, you are the wind itself. If the conscious mind is the captain of the ship, the subconscious mind is the engine room. The 99% spend all their energy trying to will themselves into success, but they fail because their engine room is programmed for failure. Your subconscious mind is responsible for 95% of your being. Behavior, it controls your habits, your emotional reactions, and your self-image. To master the mind, you must move beyond the surface level of conscious thought and learn to reprogram the deep-seated beliefs that govern your life. The subconscious mind does not think, it only reacts and executes. It cannot distinguish between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. This is why the 99% are trapped by their past. They relive their failures and traumas in their minds, and their subconscious accepts these memories as current instructions. To break this cycle, the 1% use the law of dominant impression. They understand that the subconscious will always manifest the thought that is most emotionally charged and frequently repeated. By intentionally feeding your mind with mental blueprints of success using visualization, affirmations, and focused intentionality, you begin to override the old limiting programs. Furthermore, we must address the reticular activating system, RAS. This is a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that acts as a filter for the millions of bits of data we receive every second. Your RAS decides what is important and what is noise based on your current beliefs. If you believe the world is full of obstacles, your RAS will find every obstacle. If you believe the world is full of opportunities, your RAS will point them out as if they were glowing in the dark. Mastery of the mind is the act of coding your RAS. When you set a clear, singular intention, you are essentially giving your brain a search query that it will run 24/7, even while you sleep. Reprogramming is most effective during the twilight states, the alpha and theta brainwave states that occur just before you fall asleep and right after you wake up. During these windows, the critical analytical mind is relaxed and the door to the subconscious is wide open. The 99% waste these precious moments by scrolling through social media, effectively programming their minds with comparison and anxiety. The 1% guard these windows. They use the minutes before sleep to review their goals and the minutes after waking to set their mental tone. They understand that the first and last thoughts of the day determine the quality of the hours in between. We also have to consider the feedback loop of language. The words you speak to yourself are the scripts your subconscious follows. Most people use victim language. They say things like, I have to do this, I can't do that, or I always mess this up. This language reinforces a state of powerlessness. A master of the mind uses architect language. They shift from I have to I choose to. They shift from I am a failure to I am currently learning from this outcome. Your subconscious is always listening, and it is the ultimate literalist. If you tell it you are tired and broke, it will find ways to keep you tired and broke. If you tell it you are capable and resourceful, it will find the energy and the means. Another vital concept is emotional anchoring. Our subconscious mind often links specific emotions to specific triggers. You might feel a surge of stress when you hear a certain notification sound or a sense of dread when you enter a specific building. These are unconscious anchors. Mastery involves collapsing these old anchors and creating new, empowering ones. You can intentionally link a state of high confidence to a physical gesture or a specific phrase. Over time, this becomes a psychological shortcut, allowing you to trigger a state of peak performance at will. You become the programmer of your own emotional chemistry. Finally, we must talk about the subconscious fear of success. Many people have a deep-seated belief that success will make them a bad person or alienate them from their family. This shadow belief acts like a mental emergency brake. No matter how hard you push, the subconscious will find a way to self-sabotage to keep you safe in mediocrity. To master the mind, you must bring these shadow beliefs into the light of the conscious mind and challenge them. You must align your subconscious desires with your conscious goals. When the captain and the engine room are moving in the same direction, your progress becomes unstoppable. In this second step, we have looked at the mechanics of the deep mind. We have learned how to use the RAS, how to exploit brainwave states, and how to use language as a programming tool. You are no longer just a thinker, you are a system administrator for the most powerful computer in the known universe. As we move into step 3, we will explore the architecture of perception. We will discuss how to dismantle the biases that blind you, how to cultivate mental agility, and how to use the power of perspective to turn every crisis into a victory. The world is not what it is, the world is what you perceive it to be. The 99% believe they see the world as it is. The 1% understand that they only see the world as they are, our perception. is not a window, it is a filter. Everything you experience, every setback, every opportunity, every interaction is processed through a complex internal architecture of biases, past experiences, and cultural conditioning. To master the mind, you must learn to dismantle this architecture and rebuild it to serve your highest purpose. You must move from reflexive perception to strategic perception. The first structural flaw in human perception is the halo effect. This is a cognitive bias where our overall impression of a person or situation influences how we feel and think about their character as a whole. If something looks good on the surface, we assume it is good underneath. The 99% are easily deceived by appearances, while the 1% practice first principles thinking. They strip away the halo and the horns to look at the raw data. They don't ask, is this person impressive? They ask, is this person's logic sound? Mastery of the mind requires the discipline to stop reacting to the packaging of reality and start analyzing the content. Furthermore, we must address the framing effect. The way information is presented, the frame dictates how the mind responds to it. For example, a business venture with a 10% chance of failure feels much more dangerous than one with a 90% chance of success, even though the math is identical. The 99% are victims of the frames set by others, the media, their peers, and their competitors. The master of the mind is the master framer. When faced with a crisis, they don't ask, why is this happening to me? They reframe it by asking, what does this make possible? They understand that there are no bad events, only events that haven't been framed correctly yet. Another critical aspect of mental architecture is confirmation bias. The mind is naturally lazy. It wants to be right more than it wants to find the truth. It actively seeks out information that confirms what you already believe and ignores anything that contradicts it. This creates a mental echo chamber. To break free, you must practice intellectual humility. You must become a scientist of your own thoughts, actively looking for evidence that you are wrong. The 1% don't attach their identity to their ideas. They are willing to kill their darlings the moment a more accurate truth is presented. This mental agility is what allows them to pivot and profit while the 99% are still defending their outdated beliefs. A master of the mind also understands the law of contrast. Our perception of reality is relative, not absolute. We don't know how good or bad something is until we compare it to something else. The 99% use contrast to make themselves miserable, comparing their behind-the-scenes life to everyone else's highlight reel. The 1% use contrast as a tool for resilience. They maintain a gratitude baseline. By regularly contemplating the worst-case scenarios they have avoided, they maintain a high level of mental clarity and emotional stability. They understand that perception is a dial, and they are the ones who decide where to set the scale. We must also consider the illusion of control. The 99% suffer from mental friction because they spend their energy worrying about things they cannot influence, the weather, the economy, or the opinions of others. This drains their decision capital. Mastery of the mind requires a ruthless application of the Stoic dichotomy of control. You must divide your world into two columns: things you control, your thoughts, your actions, your reactions, and things you do not. A master ignores the second column entirely. By focusing 100% of their mental energy on the first column, they achieve a level of effectiveness that looks like magic to those who are scattered. Finally, we must talk about mental speed. In a world of instant information, the 99% react instantly. They are short-circuited by their emotions. A master of the mind practices the 3-second gap. They create a space between the stimulus and the response. In that gap, they choose their perception. They don't just feel angry, they notice the anger and decide if it is a useful tool for the current situation. If it isn't, they discard it. This is the ultimate power, the ability to not be a slave to your own nervous system. You become a cool operator in a world of heated reactions. In this third step, we have explored how perception is built and how it can be hacked. You have learned to see past the halo, to reframe your challenges, to break your echo chambers, and to focus only on what you control. You are no longer seeing the world through a clouded lens. You are beginning to see with the clarity of a master. As we move into step 4, we will transition to the mastery of focus and attention. We will discuss how to achieve the flow state at will, how to protect your cognitive sovereignty in the age of distract. Ian, and why deep work is the new IQ. The mind is a lens, and it's time to learn how to focus it into a laser. The mind is a lens, and like any lens, its power is determined by its focus. The 99% suffer from cognitive fragmentation. Their attention is a scattered light bulb, spreading energy in every direction but illuminating nothing. The 1%, however, treat their attention as their most valuable currency. They understand that in the modern economy, attention is the new IQ. To master the mind, you must learn to protect your cognitive sovereignty and master the ability to direct your mental energy with the precision of a laser. The first principle of focus mastery is the cost of context switching. Every time you check a notification, glance at an email, or answer a quick question, you pay a switching tax. It takes the human brain an average of 23 minutes to return to a state of deep focus after a single interruption. The 99% live in a state of perpetual distraction, meaning they never actually reach their full cognitive potential. They are operating at 50% of their actual intelligence. The master of the mind practices radical monotasking. They build fortresses of focus where they engage in one task and only one task for extended periods. They don't just work, they descend into the work. This leads us to the flow state, a psychological phenomenon where the ego disappears, time distorts, and performance peaks. The 99% wait for flow to happen by accident, the 1% trigger it by design. To enter flow, you must balance the challenge to skill ratio. If a task is too easy, you become bored. If it is too hard, you become anxious. Mastery involves finding that sweet spot just beyond your comfort zone. By setting clear goals, eliminating external noise, and leaning into the struggle phase, you can learn to switch on the flow state at will. This is where the mind functions at its highest level of mastery. Furthermore, we must address the architecture of choice. Most people believe they have free will, but their choices are often just pre-programmed responses to their environment. Your mind is currently being harvested by algorithms designed to keep you scrolling, clicking, and reacting. Mastery of the mind requires you to take back your cognitive sovereignty. This means intentionally designing your digital and physical environment to minimize low-value stimuli. You must treat your mind like a high-end laboratory. You wouldn't let just anyone walk in and throw trash on the floor, so why do you let every random notification and headline into your consciousness? Another critical concept is cognitive endurance. Just as a long-distance runner trains their legs, a master of the mind trains their focus muscle. We live in a world of micro-content that has conditioned our brains for 15-second bursts of attention. The 99% have lost the ability to sit with a complex idea or a difficult problem for more than a few minutes. To reclaim your mind, you must practice deep work. This is the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task. It is a rare and increasingly valuable skill in our economy. By gradually increasing the length of your deep work sessions, you build the stamina required to solve problems that others find impossible. We also need to discuss the internal noise, the monkey mind. Even in a silent room, the mind is often screaming with internal dialogue, worries about the future, regrets about the past, and endless to-do lists. The 1% practice thought auditing. They realize that just because a thought pops into their head doesn't mean it deserves their attention. They use mental labeling to categorize these intrusive thoughts as noise and return their focus to the present moment. They understand that mastery is not the absence of distracting thoughts, but the ability to not be hijacked by them. They are the gatekeepers of their own focus. Finally, we must look at strategic boredom. In an age of constant stimulation, the mind has forgotten how to be still. Yet stillness is where original ideas are born. The 99% reach for their phones the moment they feel a second of boredom, effectively killing their own creativity. The master of the mind embraces white space. They take long walks without podcasts, they sit in silence, and they allow their thoughts to settle. Like a jar of muddy water that becomes clear when left still, the mind reveals its deepest insights only when it is not being constantly stirred by external input. In this fourth step, we have shifted from perception to performance. You have learned that your focus is your power, that flow can be engineered, and that your attention must be guarded with your life. You are no longer a victim of the attention economy, you are a sovereign of your own cognitive resources. As we move into Step 5, the final chapter of this masterclass, we will explore the integration of the higher self. We will talk about the transition from managing the mind to transcending the mind, the role of intuition, and how to maintain this mastery for a lifetime. We will conclude with the final call to action to seal this journey of mental sovereignty for the Knowledge Hub. The final stage of mental mastery is the transition from control to integration. In the beginning, mastering the mind feels like a constant battle, a struggle to suppress bad thoughts, force focus, and rewire habits. But true mastery is not an endless war, it is the achievement of internal alignment. It is the moment when your conscious intentions, your subconscious programs, and your daily actions all move in the same direction. The 1% do not spend their lives fighting their minds. They have refined their minds into a perfect instrument that resonates with their ultimate purpose. To reach this level, you must understand the principle of mental economy. The 99% waste their mental energy on things that don't matter, leaving them exhausted when it's time for greatness. The master of the mind practices cognitive conservation. They realize that every thought has a metabolic cost. They don't engage in petty arguments, they don't dwell on unchangeable pasts, and they don't fear imaginary futures. They keep their mental desktop clean. This clarity allows them to access intuition, the highest form of intelligence. Intuition is the subconscious mind processing patterns at a speed the conscious mind cannot follow. By silencing the noise of the ego, the master can hear the signal of their intuition. Furthermore, we must embrace the philosophy of non-attachment. Most mental suffering comes from attachment, attaching your happiness to a specific outcome, a person's opinion, or a certain self-image. When reality doesn't match your attachment, the mind creates pain. The 1% practice detached engagement. They work with 100% intensity toward their goals, but their internal peace is not dependent on the result. They understand that they are the sky, and their thoughts and life events are just clouds passing through. The clouds may be dark or light, but the sky remains vast, silent, and unaffected. Mastery of the mind also requires a transformation of your relationship with time. The 99% are mentally trapped in linear time, worrying about yesterday and anxious about tomorrow. This prevents them from ever being fully present in the only place where power exists, the now. The master lives in vertical time. They have the ability to drop into the present moment with such intensity that time seems to expand. In this state of total presence, fear cannot exist because fear requires a future. Regret cannot exist because regret requires a past. In the present moment, there is only action, clarity, and mastery. As you conclude this 5,000-word journey into the mind, you must realize that this is not a one-time achievement. The mind is like a garden. If you stop tending to it, the weeds of fear, distraction, and mediocrity will return. Lifelong sovereignty requires a daily commitment to mental hygiene. You must continue to audit your thoughts, design your environment, and challenge your biases. You have been given the source code to your own consciousness. You now have the power to delete the viruses of doubt and install the software of greatness. You are no longer a victim of your biology or your upbringing. You are the architect of your reality. The 1% lifestyle is not about what you own, it is about how you think. It is the ability to stay calm in a storm, to find opportunity in a crisis, and to maintain focus in a world of chaos. By mastering your mind, you have mastered the world, because the world is nothing more than a reflection of your internal state. You are now equipped to lead, to create, and to dominate. The barrier between you and the elite has been dissolved. The only thing left to do is to step into your new identity. Mastering your mind is the ultimate high-stakes game, and you have just completed the most comprehensive training available. If you have followed this series to the end, you possess the mental blueprints that 99% of the world will never see. You are now part of an elite group of thinkers committed to total sovereignty. To continue your journey and access more deep-form masterclasses on success, psychology, and the 1% lifestyle, make sure to subscribe to the Knowledge Hub. Our community is built for those who refuse to be average and who demand mastery over their internal and external worlds. If this guide has transformed your perspective, share it with one person who needs to hear this truth. Your support helps us keep the hub running for the visionaries of tomorrow. Stay sharp, stay sovereign, and remember, your mind is the throne. Make sure you are the one sitting on it. We will see you in the next chapter.